on tonight. Oh, sorry, Brian Edwards.
Yeah,
Brian
you got
Edwards.
it. I was like, he's gonna read it in a second or two, right?
Great words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brian Edwards, for coming on. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely no problem, Aaron.
Nice to meet you, finally.
Crew.
I know we've been trying to chat through the text.
You, Aaron.
It's okay. I was born Brian, gonna die Brian. It's all good. Ajan would freak out if I said that, but such is life, right?
Are you at training ground right now, or do you just have?
No, I'm at home.
Well, oh, that's like your office, home office.
Yeah, you got it.
Planning room.
Yeah, you got it. It's the war room, right? All my thoughts go on the back, and one by one I knock them off.
Nice. Well, Aaron's war room is actually his basement right now, and he actually clean up his laundry. Mine's like my front foyer, as you can see in the background.
You do what you got to do in these times, right?
It's exactly like mine is my wife works desk right now, but it's my makeshift studio. I get all of my magic done here.
Nice. You're like, this
Excellent.
is where all the magic happens.
We try our best. We got to work, like you said, we got to work with what we have, and that's all we can do right now. And eventually, when we have the studio, then we'll be rocking. Well, what I wanted to say is, first thing I wanted to bring up that announcement, especially the PSO kind of screening thing you put out on the internet to kind of talk about Muay Thai Ontario, and I thought it was a very well done segment. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts based on what's the reaction that you've kind of gotten through that since you put it out, and tell me how things going with that so far. Okay,
so I got to do a couple asterisks. The first one is I have a nasty habit of going Brian and telling things a little bit real. So I will give you the real answer, and if I ever have to give you a political answer, I will tell you, which is kind of weird, but I will literally tell you that this is a political polished answer. So the real answer,
give us all the answers that you want to give us.
There you go. So I would say that the first thing was as I'm sitting in my house and I'm watching people fight on Facebook and the phone is ringing and when can I open, and legitimate concerns. I'm in the same boat. I'm a gym owner, and essentially you're looking at from mid-March until now, whatever member wanted to continue paying, you were blessed to still have some income. Otherwise, this time of year was interesting. So as I'm putting myself in my gym owner's hat, I'm thinking to myself, January, February, March, most gym owners tend to cake it. You're sitting on a few $1,000s of profit. Everyone comes in, they do their once a year payments, and everything is awesome. And then April, May, most people in our demographic they tend to be in university, they tend to be in the middle of their exams, so they disappear. So the beginning of COVID for our area in Ontario, mid-March, this wasn't a big deal because you just had the boom of January and February. The problem for most of my peers, as well as myself, is May, June, you would begin to have those members come back. The people who did the 2-monthers or the 4-monthers or whatever a gym owner kind of designed, they would normally come back and they would do their 1-year membership for, hey, I just graduated in May and I'll be here for a year. Or I'm back home with my parents and I'll be here until September. So the challenge is I'm sitting in my house and I'm thinking to myself, everyone is probably looking at the news, and our government politicians, which I'm not going to knock because they haven't been in this situation before and they're doing the best that they can. They're in a situation where they have to stand in front of a camera and literally say, I don't know, in a very careful way so that they don't cause fear. And I now need to sit in front of my members and say, I just heard from a government official in polished terms, I don't know. And what I need to do is kind of explain this to our members and say, I don't know either, but here's what I'm going to try and do about it. And let me put a little bit of a spin on it. Instead of me pushing policy and a decision down the pipe, what I'd rather do is gather up some people from a good cross-section, a small gym owner, a large gym owner, a multi-location gym owner, and the medium-sized guys. And let's come to a decision as a team, as a small subsection of our entire membership, and make a decision for what makes sense for us. And that's kind of what was behind it, which is why people called me emo Brian. They'd never really seen me that serious before, but I felt it was necessary, and the feedback so far has been positive. So I'm going to keep doing it for as long as they want me to keep doing that.
Yeah, no, I thought it was amazing, especially if somebody put something out there. It looked great. And again, you articulated it as the best as you, with all the knowledge that you have at the moment, especially to help kind of distribute that message to other owners as well.
That's right. That's right. I mean, in the background, what's actually happened is this Sunday, I'm going to correct, I might actually be a little bit off by one or two people, but we had a good call with 8 gym owners, a good, as I said, cross-section of different size gym owners. And I literally said, I'm in a position right now where there are other PSOs, provincial sport organizations, that have made decisions already. Muay Thai Ontario and Muay Thai Canada has not traditionally been first to do anything. There have been other organizations that did Muay Thai and kickboxing. There are other organizations that did Muay Thai who are no longer around. What we've always done from the beginning was to take the best practices of what we saw around us, consolidate that, and then go forward with that as a plan. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. I sat down with these gym owners over Zoom and I said, we sat on a multitude of different PSO, provincial sport organization meetings. This is the information that we received, put it into a chart and said, let's make a decision. Do you want this or this? We want this. Great. Do you want this or this? I don't understand what that means. Great. Let me explain it to you. Here's the benefit of doing it. Here's the consequence of doing it. What do you guys want to do? Ooh, I didn't think of that. There was also a couple gym owners who have actually gone above and beyond to literally head out to their municipalities and say, look, I'd like to reopen. These are the things that I'd like to reopen with. I don't have buy-in from my PSO yet, but do you agree with this? And they actually came back with some fantastic information that said, my municipality and bylaw officers will approve me to reopen if I do the following things. So for me, that's hey, at least I know there's one strategy that works. Now I need to make sure that this works across the province.
So the PSO, sorry, Mike, the PSO, did they just come up with that recently, or is this some practice that's always been happening?
When you say that, what do you mean? Do you mean the
so like because the PSO saying the provincial sports organization, they want to have mandates for what you need to open up, correct?
That's right.
So did it just come up with these new, hey, these are what we need in order for you guys to open up? Or was this something that they said, oh, but had it, just run with what you have?
So anyone who studied psychology, I'm looking top right. So I'm about to go from realism into slightly polished answer. You're in a situation where as a PSO, everything that we do comes from government or gets approved by government. It doesn't matter which PSO it is. Every year we need to, I'll say recertify, but we need to send all of our documentation to say, this is what we did this year. This is what we didn't do this year. This is what we'd like to do going forward. That being said, as we sit down with government officials, we're in a situation where they made a decision that had nothing to do with our gyms, if I'm being honest. When they said we are going to allow sports with a PSO to reopen, I don't think in their mind they thought about karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai, etc. I think they were thinking about elite athletes, to be honest. But once that door was opened, people ran through the door saying, great, well, badminton's allowed. Nothing against badminton, but badminton's allowed, squash is allowed. This is allowed. Anyone who had a PSO was beating on the door of their PSO. We have been in communication through a wavelength of deep communication. What does this mean? To let's just stay in touch and kind of let us know before you release something. This was not necessarily left field, but we were hoping for a little bit more clear direction. And what we got instead was, look, the definition of a PSO when you guys signed on for this was that you're going to oversee your sport. So oversee your sport. And I'm saying that as clean as I can. It wasn't a negative statement from them. It was just, you guys are responsible to ensure that everyone in your community who's registered with you follows the rules. Define the rules that make sense for your sport, because we are not experts in sport. We're government people. Figure it out. Let us see it once you figure it out, and then push it across all the different gym owners in your sector. And that's kind of where we were. So it was fell in the lap. Geez, now we got to figure this out.
So based on the current situation, this is probably going to be a very complicated question to answer, and I think the answer will be different for each person. But given the situation, what is the best path forward for gym openers or for gyms to start opening up again? And for yourself, like, how would you go about handling it? I know it's a very tricky question that I'm asking, but basically, I'm even, for me and Aaron in our program, where we're at too, we're even thinking, it's like, okay, now, like, how do we do this? Like, how do we do this safely, efficiently? Like, we don't have all the answers. So, like, in your best way, you're in a good spot too, because you're a gym owner and you're also, you see both sides of it from a government standpoint as well. What is the answer? We need answers.
Okay. Brian, the gym owner, would turn to my PSO and I would say, ignore whatever intelligence I have. I want you guys to tell me what I should or should not do so that I don't get in trouble. For Brian on the PSO side, my job is to understand that there are some gym or school owners who are absolutely phenomenal teachers. There are some gym owners who are phenomenal coaches, and there's a distinction between those. Small pot shot at some folks. And there are some gym owners who are phenomenal business people. I don't have the luxury at the PSO level of making a decision that helps one out of those three different dimensions. I have to take all of those and ensure that all three different dimensions are assisted through this process. The business owner is going to say, okay, if right now in this particular phase, I'm entitled to have 10 people underneath my facility, and I have a 20,000 square foot facility, and I have 700 members underneath my gym, and realistically per class, I'm going to have 200 people. For that business owner, the hard decision is, does it actually make sense to start doing classes from morning until night, just so you can get through your typical daily amount of people who would walk through your gym? Because now you need to realize, how many people did you need to bring in per month to fill in your people who naturally leave the gym every month? You also have the folks who are saying to themselves, there is a cost to all of this. As all of us have kind of gone around the city and whatnot, you've walked into a grocery store, you've started to see the plexiglass. You've walked into other stores, you've started to see thermometers. You've walked into stores, they're giving you pumps of free sanitizer. There is a cost to doing that. And the most expensive, other than rent and whatnot, the most expensive thing that gym owners face is keeping your gym clean. That's one of the hardest things to do. So in a situation where cleanliness is literally the barrier between a member getting sick in your own facility and keeping people happy and open, does that cost actually make sense right now? So one of the things we did last week was we put out a survey, one, so that we could kind of figure it out, but we also wanted our gym owners to literally take a look at their business structure and say, does it make sense that I open? If I open up, will people even come? Who cares if I opened up if they don't even want to show up? And it became a snowball effect from there. Right?
Right. No. So, Brian, before all this whole thing started, you, and it says on your website, you were a student for life at one point, and you still are, right? So, like, how did you get started in Muay Thai and martial arts? Like, how did before you became this PSO guy and the gym owner and the president of the Ontario Association, how did it all start?
Before I even answer that one, I'm not the PSO guy. I'm probably
sorry. I mean, Aaron is kind of a big deal, but he's not the president.
No, see, the cool part about building this particular PSO was it was fun. And I'm going to say something that's a little bit more Brian-esque than PSO-esque, and that's that Ajahn Suchart, my instructor, said, I need you guys to do this because I've hit a roadblock. I cannot go any further with the resources that I have available. When we looked at what was necessary, we sat down at the ministry and we said, okay, so how do you actually open up a PSO? It was literally a government official. He was a consultant at the time walking into the room. He sat on one side of the table. It was Ajahn Suchart. It was Michael Reed. It was crew Jennifer Lantier, and it was myself sitting there. And he looks at us and he's just writing down and he goes, your name? Great. Your name? Great. Your name? Great. Okay, so I already know what you guys want. I actually know who you guys are. Here's the problems that you guys are going to have. And it lists out 5 things. And those are exactly what we're facing right now, which is I'm a gym owner. Crew Jen is a gym owner. Michael has his activities that he needs to do. How do you have capacity to build a PSO? It requires more than 3 people. My journey says this is part of my learning. I now need to figure out the background of what it takes to get Muay Thai to a household name, which it is not. Most people will say kickboxing. Most people now say jiu-jitsu. I think it's only the real deep down gully people who will say Muay Thai. So that brings me back to my beginning, which was your original question. How did I really get started in this crazy sport? It was purely an accident. I started off doing judo and Hungar Kung Fu, Gung Fu boxing, just kind of like Muay Thai, just it doesn't have the intent that Muay Thai, and obviously the culture is different. Moved to Toronto in 97, looked in the yellow pages for martial arts training because I couldn't find a Kung Fu school where I didn't help.
Really aging yourself right now.
I'm really aging myself. These are earned, man. They're earned. Yellow pages, man. Because my instructor said, man, if you outrank everyone there, maybe it's time for you to change sports. So I saw Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, Silat. I think they advertised pancration. I think they advertised Kali and Eskrima. And there was another one that I don't remember, but it was just the whole gamut. And I said, oh, went down there on day number 1. It was Gerald Ching.
Gerald.
Yeah, he was my very first Muay Thai instructor. It was Billy the Kid Brewer. He was a boxing instructor. I remember walking in there, and anyone, I think as martial artists, we know the story. You walk in, you sign the waiver. Do you have any experience? No. Never done anything before.
Get in that class.
Everyone lies, right?
Get in the ring. See what you got.
Skipping rope, skip. So I'm skipping, and you've never done anything? Nah, man. You're skipping flawlessly. You're doing double the whole line. He's like, all right, bro. You did pretty good for a first class, man. Bravo, bravo. I'm like, okay. You've never done anything? Nah. Do you want to spar? Yeah, I want to spar. Who says that on day number 1? You know what I mean? So they called this guy out from the back. I think his name was Slav. I really want to say his name is Slav. And the way the dressing room was designed back in those days, there was an open glass that for you and I would probably be about head height down to your shoulders. This guy walks by this glass in the change room and you pretty much see his torso. So I don't know if I'm allowed to curse in your podcast, but I was already
yeah. Go for it.
Fuck. So out comes this guy and they put us over into the ring, and I remember climbing through the ropes, and this guy goes over the top ropes because I'm vertically challenged. I'm only 5'8". So I'm looking this guy in the neck, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to go 100% Gung Fu boxing, and I'm going to do what I do. He's wearing what I now know are Muay Thai shorts, but I'm looking at the shorts, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't even read what's on it. I don't care. I'm going to smoke this guy. And it was the definition of kind of how traditional martial artists and functional martial artists argue. I must have hit him 60, 70 times in the first round. I didn't even really understand what rounds were. I heard a ding. Someone said, go! And this guy's just trying to corner me. And I'm death of 1,000 touches, and he's swinging and missing. First round goes, the second round goes, third round comes up, and at this point in my head, from my previous sport, Gung Fu boxing, I'm murdering this guy on points. There's no way he can beat me. And I tried to do something real fancy. I think it was like an overhand right with a spin to it. And I overextended. And he threw a knee. And I'm still feeling it to this day. I probably have a spot that's still a little warm. If I had to describe it to you, it felt like the knee landed in my belly button. The belly button splattered up against my spine, and I probably landed behind it. And I'm curled up on the ground. There's like a tear welling up in your eye, and there's everyone watching. Ooh, oh hey, which now I understand was like the ultimate Muay Thai douchebag. Ha ha, right? Ha ha, right? So I'm laying there on the ground. The tears are coming into my eyes, and I remember the first question everyone asked, "Bro, are you okay?" course not. You can't even talk at that point. And I fell in love with Muay Thai from that point on. I said, that will never happen to me again, for one. And for two, I want to learn how to hit someone once and have their soul leave their body, period. And that was my addiction to Muay Thai. And ever since then, I've been trying to teach other people to instill that in their opponents.
Oh, that's amazing.
So give us you've been around quite a long time. You're saying even like '97. This is when you started Muay Thai. What is the evolution that you've seen in Muay Thai from the origin of when you started in '97 all the way up to 2020? I know it's a lot. It's a big timeline, but give us some of the people that may be listening to this right now who may not know the full story. Don't worry, we got all night.
That's okay. That's okay. Instead of talking about the evolution, I'm probably going to describe it from my warped perspective. So, and again, I'm not trying to knock anybody. I'm just trying to say this was my personal journey, and everyone's journey is different, and everyone's journey is real because it's their journey. I distinctly remember leaving Muay Thai in 2000. I met Crew Gerald years later. We became really good friends, and we started teaching in Premier Fitness. Was it Premier?
Oh, Premier.
Shout out to Premier Fitness. R.I.P.
Yeah.
The robbers.
Yeah, we were over on, I think it was the main gate location. And at first It was just student with instructor, kind of getting back into training. He wanted to train, I wanted to train. This was just for the two of us. And if you can imagine it, there's a boxing room. We're there after all the boxing classes had ended, and people who were in the gym were watching us literally kick the snot out of each other back and forth. He's holding pads and I'm like ready to puke, and I'm holding pads, he's smashing. And this goes on for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then people started filing in, hey man, can you teach me that? And we both turned, no. Hey man, can you teach us that? No. And then it became, just join in, man. And we tried to make it as hard as possible so people would just leave us the F alone. And they stayed. So that was our first, all right, so if you're staying, that means you're hardcore. And we said, we only want to teach fighters. So we're going through that process. And remember, Muay Thai was not legal in those days. And the OGs in Muay Thai really paved the way because they were jailed. They were handcuffed. They sat in cells, and that's one of the reasons why they're still good. Even though their students punch each other in the face, if you look off to the side, the two instructors are normally laughing at each other because that bond was you're sitting in a cell being arrested at the time for unsanctioned fighting, to the point that officers in those days, and when I say those days, I mean a long time ago, started doing Muay Thai themselves. So someone, and I'm not going to say who the commissioner at that point in time was, I think we all understand, someone would call to shut down a demo. Officers would show up, but the officers would be students. So no one would get arrested anymore, but they'd lock the door, or they'd shut it down, or they'd go quiet for a little while until that car that everyone knew who was actually in it would disappear. You fast forward a couple of years, and I'm a gym owner. The Crew Gerald has his gym, I have my gym, and you're teaching students. And for me, to say the word gym, I'm only saying it to just be polite. But now as I train with Ajahn Suchard, I say school, not gym. I'm a teacher, not a coach. To earn the title of crew for me, when I got the title of crew, I'm not ashamed to even tell my students, I was given the name crew, and other crews did not want me to be a crew. But Ajahn and I had a conversation, and he said, this isn't a statement of who you are. This is a statement of who you will be as long as you stay on this path. So for some people, their path stops. For me, that path is, I must continue training. I must continue learning. I must continue questioning. And anyone who's been in a seminar with me, I'm one of 3 guys who asks tons of questions. Sometimes it's I legit don't know, and sometimes it's I need to confirm what I already know. I just need to hear it the 8th different way so that I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. Those who have been with me in seminars, I'm the guy who comes with a camera and I record it. And for the next year, I'm watching that seminar over and over and over again to make sure that I don't lose anything. Where I see Muay Thai going is a little bit sad, because Muay Thai has the punches, the elbows, the knees, the kicks, but that's not what makes Muay Thai Muay Thai. That's kickboxing, that's K1. I'm not knocking those. I'm just saying that's the definition by the rule set. But Muay Thai without the culture is like me saying, go ahead and do all the training that you could possibly do. And then I tell you, I'm going to tape your nose and mouth and you cannot breathe. It's one and the same. I have to have the culture mixed in with the actual sport. So where I am right now is I'm older now. I've seen some interesting things, some good, some bad. And I would really love to give this sport some of the things that it honestly deserves. We often think of it as kickboxing. We say, oh, I do Muay Thai, and the person shadow boxes. We forget some of the things in the background: code, honor, love people, respect people, believe in what they can actually achieve, Ajahn Suchart's motto. So my goal right now is to make sure that every person that I meet, every person that I touch, regardless of their sport, understands that that's what I stand for, beyond the elbows, the punching, the kneeing, the kicking, which is the brutal stuff. And if you pay attention, Muay Thai is just as beautiful as it is brutal if you understand it.
It's amazing. One thing I've noticed, it's like, I know with jiu-jitsu as it was first coming up, and then obviously, again, it was all seminars. So where you could get all the knowledge, and it was all seminars based on that. And now so much stuff is available, especially now because of the lockdown, but it's available online. So every student is watching online, go try it in class and all that. Do you feel that's happening with Muay Thai at all? And like students are catching a lot of stuff online and trying to bring it to class? Or is it more your students are respecting the art and with the teachers at all?
That's a fantastic question. You saw the top right, but I caught myself. You have a hard decision as a Muay Thai Nak Muay. There will always be that person online who's going to look at a video and tear it to shreds. There are always going to be the people who look at things and compare it to this superstar or that superstar. I believe if people started as a student, really approach Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu as a student, a lot of these tearing down of others will stop. I can tell you that there's a way to condition your shins. You can grab a rolling pin and you can roll your shins. That to me is the equivalent of going out to a fine restaurant, asking them to pan seize your steak, just sear it so that it's closed up, but the inside is still bloody and sopping wet. That is the rolling pin method. Muay Thai, in its original sense, was just repetition. If you go to Thailand, you're going to get two types of instruction. The ones that and I keep looking top left because I'm trying to be polite of all the folks over there, but I don't think I'm going to be polite for a second. And this doesn't mean that I have all the answers. Like I said, I'm still learning. There's going to be the instructors there. Ajahn says Kru Fuk, the instructor where they learned by doing, but they don't really understand the process of it. They don't really understand how to program. A teacher understands how to program, even though they may not be in the corporate world. You head out to a gym in Thailand, this guy holds pads for you and he goes 5 rounds and you're like, wow, that was amazing. I've never trained like that in my life. And my student comes back from Thailand and he goes, Crew, I had an awesome time in Thailand. And I go, that's great. What did you learn? I smashed the pads and then, yeah, but what did you learn? What really did you learn? Did he just show you a whole bunch of cool tricks and now you can't even remember them? Or did you actually learn something? The other side of the coin is you go to a gym in Thailand and the guy literally teaches you nothing, but you can see he's waiting for you. It's almost like a rite of passage. One of the gyms I go to in southern Thailand, Patong Stadium Gym, shout out to Juanita. She's like a Thai Don King out there. You want to fight? You can fight. It's okay. Saturday, you do 5. How heavy is he? Oh, boy. Right? She's that kind of person. But one of the things that I loved that gym for is you train on day number 1 and it's hard training. and the guy looks at you and he'll make one small correction. That correction might be he walks over, he grabs your foot and he moves it 3 degrees and he tells you nothing. And he continues holding pads and then he stops and he grabs your foot and he moves it back 3 degrees. And he continues pads. And for him, that was the world, because everything that you're doing is wrong without that being right. Day number 2, you show up. And like I said, I try to be a student. I ignore everything else that we were doing. And I concentrated on the one thing that he stopped. So I show him, I stomp my foot down and I show, is this where you want it? Because there's a language barrier. I'm not fluent in Thai. So all you could do is really show. So I show him my foot and he goes, and then he'll fix something else. And then the next day he'll go and fix something else. And he starts to layer. And then at the end of the week or the 2 weeks or however long you're there, then you've earned the right for him to show you something which encompasses all the small corrections that he did. And that, not only did you learn it and it's going to stick in your head a whole lot longer, but it literally is the world. Punching, kicking, kneeing, and elbowing, anybody could do that, but to do it very precisely with death-like intentions is difficult to do. And the only way you can do that is if you follow the small steps that take a long time to build and not roll your shins to get the fast answer. And that for me is the hard part of training in Muay Thai. There's 2 schools of thought. There's an evolution where you use science for it, which has its merits. And there's the old school method of shut up, hit that bag. And when you've hit it enough, you'll know, right? You tend to correct all your mistakes through either pain or punishment. Right?
That's true. Oh, no, it's great.
Give us actually some of like your training, your competition career, your experiences in Thailand. Like you touched on a lot about just the basically like the philosophy of their training there. But how does it feel like being in Thai? I've never been to Thailand, so
Okay.
how does it feel? That's clearly the mecca of Muay Thai, where it originated. It would be like, you know, doing jiu-jitsu in like Rio de Janeiro on the beach.
Right.
Like how does that feel like when you're there? Like when did you take your first trip there? Fights, competitions.
I've been to Thailand before for other reasons. My first real trip for a Muay Thai reason was 2012, and I went with Ajahn Suchart. The experience with him was irreplaceable for a couple of reasons. When I vacation, personally, I like to immerse myself in the culture, and here I have someone who can speak Thai, so it's not going to get any better than this. So we land in the airport, we hop into a taxi, we get down to this hotel, we throw our bags into the hotel room, and we go for a walk. And he wanted to show me Khao San Road. Khao San Road is one of the most famous roads in Thailand. You can see your future wife or husband there. You can see in a couple of moments, I'm about to lose my kidney. You can see massages. You can see everything all on that road. It is unique and it's an experience in itself. But walking through Khao San Road with my Ajahn, a Thai man, things were very different for me compared to all the other trips, and I could clearly see the difference. One, people aren't approaching me anymore because they're looking to my left and they're seeing Ajahn walking, and if you know the way Ajahn walks, it's like walks like a brick going through water. Right? But you're watching the culture, and you're realizing from this man next to me, he'd stop at a street vendor, and the street vendor's making pad thai, chicken pad thai, 30 baht. And at that time, you divide, the exchange rate was 30 to 1. So basically, you're getting a plate of pad thai for $1. And you watch Ajahn order the food, and in my mind, 30 baht. So I give 30 baht. And in Ajahn's mind, I am in a place of privilege. So $1 for me is not really what this would cost back home. So Ajahn will give $10. And I look over at him, message received. I get it. As I travel here, I need to respect what I have as privilege, and I need to give to someone who is trying to do an honest service. You travel onto the street and picture, let me try and picture something here. Picture the gardener without the fence in the middle here in Ontario. You're standing on the sidewalk and you see cars flying by in opposite directions, and you see literally someone on a motorcycle with a sidecar, and the sidecar has a burner on it, kind of like a wok or a hot plate to it. The light turns red, And in that area that we were in Bangkok, the light turns red and it stays red for like 5-6 minutes. So the scooter or motorcycle comes up, the little old lady turns to you and she just starts cooking because she knows someone's going to order. And I'm in my head going, she's in a motorcycle in the middle of the street making food on a sidecar. There's no gloves. She's just reaching into a bag, throwing chicken into the hot pot and just cooking it. And I'm thinking, meh, what's the worst that can happen? I have all my shots. So she scoops up all the food, she drops it into the bag, she pours Cokes into a plastic bag, and those who have been to Thailand know what I'm talking about. You have your plastic bag of food, you have your plastic bag of drink with a straw in it, and because some of the culture is you ride along on a scooter, you don't really use the utensil, you just push it into your mouth, right? So you start getting used to street food being served to you like that. Coming back here, it feels very weird to order pad thai and have a plate and a knife and fork, and that's kind of the way that you've seen it done. It's not a knock for either way, it's just plain different. You move to some of the different gyms and you start realizing you do not need $30,000 of mats and the latest bags and all kinds of other tech for it to be absolutely awesome. All you need is a good heart, a good mind, and the willingness to learn. I've been to some gyms in Thailand that, man, I was very happy that I had my shots. I was very concerned to take my shoes and socks off, and I was fine. And there are some gyms where, oh my goodness, everyone is just giving you the sun, the moon, and the stars because you're a foreigner. And it's not like I fit in. I clearly stand out, right? There's one thing that is probably the coolest thing about training in Thailand, and that's the tin cup. And anyone who does Muay Thai who's watching this right now is howling, laughing because they know exactly what I'm talking about. You arrive at the gym, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and they tell you, you, run. You don't know the area, you don't know the neighborhood, there's all kinds of alleys, and you have no idea where you are. They just tell you, run. So I remember the first place that we went, it was up in Chiang Mai. It was Ajan's nephew's place. I say nephew weird, I'm Trinidadian, sorry. But it's, you hop into the back of a pickup truck and he drives out, and now you know that it's about 5 kilometers, right? But if you're smart, you're paying attention to the way that the roads go. And Ajan taught me since I've been there, pay attention to things that are around you, crew, and you won't have any problems. Don't go into alleys. Essentially, don't spit into the wind, don't pull on Superman's cape, and don't be a jerk. You know what I mean? And you'll be okay. So I'm paying attention to where this truck is going. Turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left. Stops. He goes, everybody out. And then the truck just leaves. So you have to run back to the gym. So if you didn't pay attention, your run was more than 5 kilometers. If you did pay attention, it was 5 kilometers. You get back to the gym, and it's you. Hit the bag. There's no instructions on how to hit the bag. They're assuming that you know how to hit the bag. So you hit the bag. When they believe that you've worked up enough of a sweat, you shadow box. So you shadow box. They're watching your technique and they're devising a plan of how they're going to correct you. Then they call you into the ring based on what they saw. You suck with your right swing kick because you keep leaning out to the outside of your toes. When you shadow box, I can see it's because you step every single time you punch. So now that you're in the ring, his goal is nothing more than to stop you from doing those things. But to you, if you're not paying attention to the small things, to you, oh my gosh, it's either A, he broke me in half with cardio, B, I didn't really learn anything, he just kept making me do the same thing, or C, oh man, I suck every single time I try and balance on the ball of my foot. I go to the outside, I need to fix that. I didn't even realize I did that for years. That's what training in Thailand is all about. Repeat, 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 until for them, I don't need to tell you that anymore. I'm going to give you the next one. And if you're lucky, a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, or 3 flights later, 5 flights later, then he'll give you a tidbit. And the tidbit is always, he looks to the right, he looks to the left, everyone's already left for the day. Then he gives you what Muay Thai really is. And that's when your eyes go, oh my God, I never knew.
Amazing. So that, like, it's totally different, obviously, from the stories that you're saying. Training is like there compared to, I guess, Ontario. I'll just say Ontario because I've only trained in Ontario in general. Yep. Like, has anybody ever tried to bring that type of atmosphere here, or is that just something that you just can't replicate?
you're kind of stuck. I said earlier tin cup, so there's a couple of things that just make training there completely different. Um, Visually looking at the place, there's no walls to some
Yeah.
of the gyms, right? It's just wide open. So the question is, as a foreigner, why don't people steal anything from here? Well, that's the local gym. It's not like you fly a banner of uh, training ground or bravado or anything else for that matter. It's this is the gym in your area, your municipality. So who's going to steal from that? That's the communities, right? Um, you have another challenge, which is you're doing all this training and you realize that the local Thai guy, the guy from that village, the guy from that city, the young kid is sitting there watching you and they're talking to him saying, do you see what this guy is doing wrong, this foreigner? And he's answering back, yeah, he's doing this. If you're paying attention, you see he's doing the same foot movement you were doing, and you've now realized that was wrong. So you realize they're talking about you. The round is over, and the little kid in the gym, the youngest one who sleeps there, grabs this tin cup, fills it up with water, and out of respect, he gives it to you to say, thank you for learning. I'm giving you water to kind of say, I see you're trying as hard as you can and failing miserably, but I see you're trying as hard as you can. That in itself is hard to replicate. And then you add to the fact that here in North America, it's, I need to make money. I need to make my bread. So I need to pack in as many people in here as possible so that I can pay the rent. There's no way that an instructor can hold pads for 5 rounds for every single person in their gym and turn a profit here in North America. But in Thailand, if 20 people show up to the gym, you'll see the guy go off to the side, grab his cell phone, make a phone call, and suddenly a whole bunch of scooters with old Thai fighters show up at the gym and they're all holding pads just so they can get through 20 people. The next day, if it's just 5 people, it's just you and him. So it really all depends on how many people show up to the gym. They ask you, are you here? Do you want to stay at the gym so that you're not paying that extra money at the hotel? Here's the price. It includes food. Well, that's probably the gym owner's wife or the guys at the gym cooking for you, right? They kind of end up being self-sufficient. Can you duplicate that here? I don't think that you can. You can try, but it might be to your detriment. You might be living in your gym old school style, right?
That's not more like the training philosophy. I think you can replicate, but maybe maybe some of the cultural things, like North American culture versus the Thai culture, might be a little bit different. But I think there's definitely some things that you can share from both. Another thing I wanted to ask you was, so you are a gym owner. We've established that. Take us. How did Training Ground Muay Thai start? You mentioned Premier Fitness. I got my start at Premier Fitness. For those who are listening to this podcast, they know the history of Premier Fitness. I'm not going to get into that too much. But how did...
I'm not going to say anything about that because I don't want to get sued. So you go ahead and say what you want.
He's in jail anyways. It's fine. Don't worry about
it. But anyways, I want to ask you, like, how did Training Ground Muay Thai start? Or when did you wake up one day and just decide, you know what, I'm going to open a gym. I'm going to do this. Like, where did that come from?
It was technically Gerald and I opening it together. When Gerald decided to open his own gym, I kept the reins of Training Ground. What became a challenge was I wanted Training Ground to be a little bit different. And your previous question of how do you emulate what exists in Thailand? At that point, I had not been to Thailand for Muay Thai purposes. So I called Ajan. Ajan and I were chit-chatting, and he literally dropped everything and came down and said, I'm going to make some adjustments to everything that you do. Ajan is not the kind of person to show you an 8-page document and tell you this chapter, we're going to be working on this chapter, we're going to be working on that. He works on a layer philosophy. So as Training Ground opened up, when I say Training Ground, I mean under my guidance, it was literally like a reopening, starting from scratch. There are students that I have to this day who have been through both programs and remember the day that I had sat down with Ajan and Ajan really ripped my technique apart and started rebuilding it. Things were different. So those students who are still with me, some of them have moved away, some of them still do Muay Thai just, in different parts of the country or different parts of the world. they saw that I wasn't afraid to say, I don't know, I'm changing this because I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that, and I prefer this because it seems to work better and it's simple. Muay Thai is very, very simple and hard at the same time. Follow it to the letter and you have no problems. Deviate and add your own spices and you've made a different dish. That is the best way that I can describe it. At that point in time, training ground was more along the lines of, I need to just survive as I get through this period of rebuilding and regrowth. Financially, I didn't really care about it. From a curriculum standpoint, it really mattered to me, and it required that I humble myself and start all over. The growth of training ground was based on me deciding to say, I'm not going to pay attention to the business side of it. That will solve itself if I give people exactly what they're looking for, which is real Muay Thai without watering it down, and admitting that we are all going to continue learning. And to this day, that's kind of the way that we go, right? Members come, members go. It doesn't matter to me. But what does matter to me is if you've been at training ground and you say that you've trained at training ground and someone says, show me Muay Thai, that you can show what Muay Thai is and isn't. And usually it isn't standing here like this, right?
I like it. So, rephrase my question. Sorry, I did it like right in the top of my head. I was like, I'm gonna say that. No, not gonna work. So obviously, there's no competitions going on right now. But is there like a like one competition or one fight that you kind of have in your mind that is like just an absolute stands out in your mind as a great achievement or something that you're really proud of or happy about?
There's two of them, actually. The first one was in a Muay Thai Ontario provincial tournament. So if he's watching this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to talk about Putre Joseph. We call him Zoolander. Joseph, when he first came to training ground, was a muscular guy. He's into personal fitness. You tell Joseph to run 20 kilometers as a joke. You'll look around, not see Joseph. He'll come back covered in sweat. He ran 20 kilometers because you told him to. Joseph would do anything that you told him to the letter. To him, Muay Thai wasn't all that hard because from a cardio standpoint, he was already there. From a strength and conditioning point, he was already there. He just needed to learn how to move his body. So there he is in the first fight, and he wins the first fight, and he moves on to the second fight. And I think the second fight was the last one in that particular tournament. And he's fighting a guy who was a little bit taller than he was. I'm not going to say the name of the school out of respect, and it's not to make fun of them whatsoever. But Joseph comes back into the corner after his first fight, and he goes, "Oh my God, this is really hard." Yeah, man. Like, training and fighting is different. Yeah, man. Like, what did you do? Then he sees the height of the other guy that he has to fight. He's like, man, he's a string bean. So my personality in the gym, I try and be really humble. I am humble, or I try to be. My personality in the fight game, I like to be very real. So I'm holding him by the head and I go, Joseph, I need you to understand something. See that guy? He's really tall. Don't try and punch him in the face because you're not going to reach with the force that you want. What I need you to do, Joseph, is look at the length of his legs. It's going to take him forever to move that leg to hit you. Forever for him to put it back down before he can move again. I want you to look at that leg, his lead leg. I want you to cut it off with your shin and bring it back to me at the end of the first round. And Joseph looks at me and he's like, one, because he's never heard me talk like that, and two, because he's like, what the he goes out, and in that first round, he gets pummeled. So he gets hit with the first shot. The guy's taller than he is. He obviously has reach. Joseph was trying to get to the inside, and he's just getting tagged. He's just horrible first round. And in my head, I'm thinking, I need to do the sandwich method. So when he comes back into the corner, I'm going to give him positive, something that I need you to fix, something that I need you to stop from this guy. So this is what you're doing well. This is what you're doing poorly. This is what I want you to do next. Go back out there. I changed my mind. He came back and I said, listen to me. I need you to kick, step in, and then hit him. Joseph, in his exhaustion, heard kick. And he heard nothing else other than kick. He goes out for the second and third round, and literally, and I'm not even exaggerating this, literally threw nothing but a right swing kick at the guy's lead leg. It was to the point that everybody in the whole crowd was screaming, whether you were for or against us. Oh, hey, oh, the guy's leg was like multiple colors. It was like a rainbow, to the point that he's standing in southpaw. Then he's running away from Joseph. And I'm like, that for me was an awesome achievement, because he won it Muay Thai style. I am going to hit you and hit you and hit you until you cannot do anything to me any longer. And I'm not making fun of other styles, and I'm not disrespecting the evolution of the sport. But often what tends to happen in today's day and age, 2020, is let me try this. Well, let me try this. Or there's this cool thing that I saw on YouTube. Well, let me throw a combination. There was no combination. That was old school Muay Thai. And I'll never forget Ajan coming over after the fight, grabbing Joseph, hugging him and saying, thank you, you understand what Muay Thai is. And for me, I was like, and Ajan looks at me and goes, shut up, stupid. Wow, how come you didn't do this and this and this? Because you're never right with Ajan.
Never.
Here you go. The second one was, I won't say what his profession was, but we traveled to Thailand, and he decided to have his fight in northern Thailand. And he's fighting in round 1 and he's winning. In round 2, he's winning. In round 3, he's winning. In beginning of round 4, he turns to me and he goes, how am I doing? I go, bro, you're doing awesome, man. Everything it looks beautiful, sweet. He's like, okay, I'm going to try some stuff. He tried some fancy stuff that I didn't really care for, because I'm not really the fancy type. And he comes back in after the 4th round. In his mind, not understanding super traditional Thai culture, in his mind, he did pitter-patter. He didn't really smash the guy. He was hitting him, but didn't smash him. He comes back into the corner. We give him water. We're rubbing him down, the ice on the thighs, the whole 9, stretch the leg, stretch the leg. He gets up. He's like, oh, man, I haven't tried elbows yet. And then starts to walk out. And I'm like, no! you do not. So ref says fight, beginning of the 5th round. He throws jab cross, blocks the jab cross, pulls the guy's arm out, throws an elbow, and it cracks the guy like this. And I'll never forget, the guy gets hit, blap, and he was like staggering around. This was like the second win to end all second win, like all the videos we've seen when a cop tasers someone who's on drugs. The guy just drops his hands, looks at Wayne all crazy, and just goes, and it became 45 seconds of nothing but elbows from the two of them. So Wayne's cutting his hairline, he's cutting his eyebrow, he's looking at me in the middle of the fight, and I'm like trying to scream any kind of direction without literally screaming out, run! Right? He comes back over and he loses the fight, and he goes, I don't understand. I won round 1, 2, 3, and 4. Why'd I lose the fight? And I remember grabbing my cell phone, turning the screen so that he can see himself, and I hold it up. And it's like a crimson mask. Just the blood gushing out the top of his head. It's gushing out of his eyebrow, and it's just pouring down here. And I'm like, because you look like that. And then the night ends off. You got to remember, this is a stadium that's not a top-tier stadium. It's one of those stadiums. He's getting stitched up. And I turn to the guy who's stitching Wayne. And 1, you're getting stitched at the stadium, right? 2, he's lying on a table. And to his left, as he's looking up like this, to his left right over here, there's the bar. So they're serving the food and the drinks, and the waitresses are grabbing the food right over Wayne's open cut to go and serve their patrons. And I turn to the guy who's stitching, and I go, man, how long have you been doing this? Oh, like 20 years. Oh, you've been a doctor for 20 years. And he looks at me and he goes, who said I was a doctor? He's stitching people up forever. But according to Wayne, that was the greatest stitch job he's ever had. No scar, nothing, right in sensitive spots. He's been fine. So for me, that's learning Muay Thai the hard way, both a positive as well as a negative. So I tell all my guys, don't throw elbows unless you're willing to wear a mask.
I was gonna ask you, with that gentleman, didn't he say like he was like practicing on chickens and like?
Yeah, man. I was trying to leave that out. I was really trying to leave that out. But I don't even know who he was. He just walked over, grabbed Wayne, and said, "Oh, I fix," and grabbed Wayne. And you're chit chatting after Wayne's all stitched up, and Wayne's off there drinking with the guy that he fought. They're all hugging each other. It was an awesome experience. how did you learn how to do this if you're not a doctor? Well, I practiced on chickens, and once I got the technique, I just got really good at doing this. So they hire me every Saturday night so that foreigners, don't go back to the hotel looking bad. So I turn and I walk away and I go, what'd you say? I realized what he just said, but either way, it's part of the experience.
Oh boy. So especially with the modern day, especially like when you look at like whether it being in UFC or K1, who do you think, in your personal opinion, is displaying Muay Thai the best out there on the professional stage?
Top right. I have to be very careful how I answer this because I mean it with respect. I don't believe that you can do Muay Thai, raw Muay Thai, in a UFC setting. There are people who modify it the least, but it's very rare that I have seen things that are Muay Thai. Just like you guys are jits guys. You would look at someone do a single leg or double leg and it might be different to the way you would do it in your sport, but you understand the reason why they did it. To get to the point, there are a couple of people who I like watching. Donald Cerrone as an example. I remember the days where he was fighting and he wore his Thai shorts until I remember he got fined because the shorts kept coming down when someone tried to take him down to the ground. They forced him to wear board shorts after that. But I see his technique and it's not Muay Thai, but it's Muay Thai. You look at it and it's unmistakable. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I enjoy watching him. There was a fighter, and I wish I knew his name right now. I just remember Joe Rogan screaming it over and over again that he went to Thailand and he learned Muay Thai the hard way, came back, but you could clearly see it. Someone is probably going to be screaming in your comments, oh, it's blah, blah, blah. I just don't remember the guy right now. His stance was not MMA. His stance was not compromised at all. It was 100% Muay Thai. He'd never stood like that before, according to Joe Rogan. I don't think he's done it since. But in that one fight, what I saw was a Muay Thai fighter smashing the brakes off another guy who did not understand what was happening to him. And when you do Muay Thai at a even medium level, it's very difficult to beat if you understand how to use the tools. To hammer in a nail, we all understand, use a hammer. A scalpel is great at cutting people, but if you use a scalpel to hammer in a nail, you're going to be there for a little while. This guy used the correct answer for every single situation, whether it was stance, footwork, movement, weaponry selection. It was all crystal clear, and it's really pissing me off that I don't remember the guy's name, because now everyone's going to go, who was the guy? And someone's going to be a genius in your comments saying it was blah blah blah. That for me was awesome to see.
Nice. Oh, I actually did have a question on a professional level. So when Anderson Silva first came into the scene of the UFC, because before he was with Cage Rage and he was with Pride, and then it was the Chris Lieben fight. It was the first one where everybody saw Anderson at the beginning, and there was a new age of striking. Do you think that kind of helped kind of push the sport more? Do you think it was kind of didn't really do much, or do you think it was a good springboard as far as bringing any Muay Thai awareness around, or was it already out there?
Hard question. If we're talking about my personal opinion, yes, he brought Muay Thai extra popularity. One of the situations or one of the fights that I remember that really made Muay Thai popular, the phone in the gym blew up, was the first Anderson Silva Rich Franklin fight.
Yeah, and that's a great one.
Yeah.
Perfect example of Rich Franklin was a phenomenal fighter. But against an Anderson Silva, he didn't understand what was happening to him. And that's not a knock against him. It's just Anderson had a very clean, traditional, no modification to it clinch. He understood that I'm not holding onto the neck, I'm holding the head. He understood that I'm using the blades of the forearms and I'm going to cut off your air supply as I squeeze like scissors. He understood how to break his posture before you throw the first knee. Don't just grab someone and start chucking up knees. What you saw was a very technical clinch, and Rich Franklin's response was someone who didn't understand or had never felt something at that level. So he first answered back with punches to the body. Then he tried to swing over the top of the arm to get to the head. And we all understand when you punch, you need to turn your body. So he didn't realize Anderson is preventing his shoulders from turning, so trying to punch was futile, right? What you need to do is break the posture, break the clinch, swim, whatever the case may be. I don't want to give out all the answers to those who don't know. But at the end of the day, that was a perfect example of someone who didn't understand Muay Thai. And that's not a knock on Rich Franklin, because Anderson was just plain better in every way, shape, or form. To the point that it happened in the second fight, the exact same way, with nothing else. There's no seasoning to it. There's no salt, pepper, paprika. There was no Cajun spice. It was just, I'm just going to grab you again and see if you figured it out. And you could see Anderson, I'm being a little bit of a jerk here, and I don't mean to be, but there's a part in it where Anderson knees, bam, 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 and then he stops. And that stop was almost to say, come on, man, like, didn't you figure this out? And then he goes, I guess not, and then finishes him. And that for me is the definition of Muay Thai. Use the technique, there's nothing fancy about it, and just disassemble your opponent 7 ways from Sunday without flying through the air, without, cartwheel kicks or the fancy stuff. It was basic, it was straightforward.
And you mentioned it's the small little micro details that make me trying to Muay Thai clinch somebody versus Anderson Silva trying to Muay Thai clinch somebody.
In your jiu-jitsu world, when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, I remember being told how to position the hand for an armbar, right? For you guys, this is straightforward stuff. And I'll never forget an interview with Georges St. Pierre. He was fighting, Dan
Hardy, I believe.
Dan Hardy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He had him in an arm bar, and he's pulling on the arm, and every jits guy's like, rotate the hand! And Georges St. Pierre's like, in that moment, he couldn't remember the training of where to position the hand for it to work. We all know it doesn't take a lot of effort, but it's that small micro correction that is the difference between an MMA guy doing jiu-jitsu versus a jiu-jitsu guy doing jiu-jitsu. And that's not a knock on MMA guys. It's just you didn't remember, and that's why it didn't work. And that, for me, is the hard part about doing some of these sports. To keep it pure, or do you evolve with the times? That's the hard part.
Yeah, no, I remember that fight exactly, because the hips were not there, the hands all messed up, and I was like,
exactly. This is basic. Even my white belts know that. Jits guys were walking around all week screaming that. Oh my God, it was horrible. But he admitted in the interview, I can't believe my hips were in the wrong place. I didn't close my knees and the hand was in the wrong place. He knew it afterwards. It could have been exhaustion. For me as a student to see a professional ignore all the lights, the reporters, and tell you, I messed up, and I messed up for the following reason, and I can't believe I forgot that silly thing. That's what makes him a great martial artist, and that's what made him absolutely a phenomenal champion. The ability to learn and admit where you were wrong and improve constantly, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. So one more question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
So especially with now that we're kind of obviously stages are getting better, we're slowly starting to see the province starting to open up. How hopeful are you, especially when you look at it as getting back to, I guess people don't like calling it the new normal, but I guess it'd be a normal state of getting back into training and then eventually, back to where it was.
Brian does not think that we will be back to where it was for months. Crew Brian says, I will try to make it as comfortable as possible. And I think you understand what I'm getting at is we've talked a couple of times using a couple of scenarios, some funny, some not so funny. Muay Thai there's a very clear recipe for it. And when you deviate from that recipe, bad things happen. Can you work on the bag, ignoring what the rules are or are not right now? Can I work on the bag the way that I normally would tell you? The answer is no. Because if there's 4 bags or 6 bags, whatever the case may be, and one guy's here and the other guy's here, and both of them are working their footwork and they come here, I'm not adhering to the minimum required distance between people. So can you hit the bag? Yes. Are you hitting the bag the way you are supposed to hit a bag? It has very little to do with you hitting the bag, and it has everything to do with your spatial awareness and using your footwork as you hit the bag. So did you actually get better? Crew Brian says you're not getting better because you're not hitting it the way that you are. Brian, the business owner, says, I'm giving you a service. Are you happy that you're hitting the bag? Crew Brian and Brian don't agree, and I'm torn with what to do. The hard part for every gym owner will be exactly the same. I'm no different. I'm no unique, or at least I'm assuming not. They're deciding, how do I give them what real sport is and still adhere to these guidelines? And the answer is, you can't. When will you be able to? I don't know. And for some gym owners, it's one of the reasons why they close. I can't give you what the product is. For some students, they know what the product is. And I don't like saying the product, but I think you understand what I mean. They know what the product is, so whatever you give them will be a bastardized version, so they're not going to be happy. And then there's going to be the ones who don't care. They're just happy to be in a gym and smashing stuff. Those are the folks who don't necessarily stay. They're the perpetual gym hoppers. The ones who understand the product and stay are your diehards. They like you for you. They like their fellow members for who they are. And the ones caught in the middle are the ones who understand, this is what I want and you can't give it to me, so I'm going to stop until you give it to me. That is the part that is the dagger in the heart, because you don't have the ability to change what the situation is to fit those people who will protect Muay Thai now and long after I'm gone. And that's the hard part.
I think you mentioned even as well, just based on what's going on as a gym owner, unfortunately, there's only so much you can control. So like you even mentioned, like you're torn, like, hey, like I want to do what we were doing before, but based on what's going on, we can't do that, but I still want to provide that service as best as possible. Like I know there's a lot of things even going on in jiu-jitsu right now, like how do we reopen? Can we work in partners? That's going to be very difficult. Now, you even mentioned as well, like the product, like the training, the environment is going to be different because, when I go to jiu-jitsu class, I want to, interact with people. I want to train with them and work with different partners, different body types. You can't do that right now. Like, do I want to go to a class and work solo drills with a grappling dummy? It's a different product now, right?
Yeah. Right. That's 100%.
This is the challenge that I think not only you, but a lot of gym owners are facing right now. And this is going to be a challenge for me and Aaron as well when we go back to running a program. It's, we want everybody to be safe, but at the same time, how do we try to provide the same product that we did before? Is that even possible? And honestly, it might not be possible.
The formula, the Thai formula, run, go out and do your run. You come back from your run, skip, you finish your skip, shadow box. You finish your shadow box, and while you're shadow boxing, you're planning to yourself what you're going to improve on for the day. You finish your shadow box, you go over to the bag. You work the bag with the exact same thing that you were practicing in your shadow boxing. If you're practicing your lead in for your lead elbow, when you go over to the bag, you're applying it now with impact. You finish there, pad work. You're doing the exact same thing. You haven't deviated from it. Doesn't mean you aren't throwing other weapons, but you're still working on the exact same plan. How do I lead in with my elbow? When you're done with that, it's time to do technical sparring. How do I lead in with my elbow with a real person? So I did it with my imagination. I did it with a bag. I did it on pads. Now I'm doing it with a person. You have all the dimensions of things that could possibly go wrong. You get your answer, repeat the next day. Can you still run in today's day and age? Yes. Can you skip? Yes. Can I shadow box? Yes. Can I hit the bag? Sort of. Maybe at 50%. Can I do pad work? 0, unless we're from the same household. So now I have a group over there who's from the same household, who's doing the real formula that everybody knows and understands. And these guys who are stuck in their masking tape or painter's tape box, not allowed to really move, and they're not allowed to use any other bag. If you know that that's the formula, then anything else that I give you is watered down. But can I do other things to make sure that you improve so that when things do open up, you have access to really engage what you've learned? Yes, I can make shadow boxing absolutely brutal for you. I can make it a cardio drill, a strength drill, a technique drill. Can you work on the bags? I personally have 10 bags in the gym. Fortunately enough, the limit is 10 people in the gym, so everyone's going to have a bag. I feel bad for gym owners who are at a community center who may have to stay still paid but don't have access to tools. There are gym owners who have 20 bags, great, but you only have 10 people. That means they might actually be able to allow people to circle the bag and work properly. That's exactly what I was getting at by you need to really, as a business owner, look at the requirements that are about to come down and look at your access to things and make a real decision with your members. Look, if I can only allow you to shadow box and only 10 of you can work the bag, are you happy? And some will say yes, and unfortunately some will say no. And that's the hardest pill to swallow because it's the truth.
I think you laid it out, and it's an amazing plan. I think it's just step by step. Patience is a key thing as well, and just waiting for things to kind of get to a spot where everybody can, again, like you said, have an art that you can still present the product, and then just bit by bit, slowly get back to normal, like you said as well.
The part that, honest to God, scares me is top right. Someone deciding to make something happen because it seems like the right decision at the time, and all of us suffer because of it. That's what my fear is. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that the community made a decision as to what would be permitted and what would not. We did it with the best of intentions to try and ensure that everybody in the community would still be able to at least do something, right? I can't give you real bad work or pad work, but we're going to do this in our squares. And some of it is going to be new. You have to be creative and figure out, how am I going to teach two people in two completely different squares? Maybe it's a drill where I throw something and you defend, but there is no contact. It's use your eyesight, right? You never know what might come out of this. Maybe we learn how to teach in a very different way that will be with us forever because you've learned some interesting ways of reinforcing something that you couldn't before, right?
Well, I think, like you said, like even at the beginning as our whole thing, I think this is really going to separate crews like yourself and people who know how to teach in different aspects and different environments and learning how to teach in a different way than they were before. It can't be cookie cutter. You have to be creative. And how do you teach what you're trying to get across to your student in a different way now? Right. Yeah. And it's just going to challenge more teachers and more crews like yourself and separate the individuals who are not giving you a product or just can't coach that way.
That's right. Like one of the questions Mike had asked earlier was the path of training ground. And I remember first getting the title of crew. If someone asked me, how do I do X? I would give the answer, and it's the correct answer. But if that person didn't understand it, I didn't have a breadth of knowledge behind me to explain it 18 different ways or 20 different ways or using analogies. Now it's you spit out an answer, you see the person's having a different problem, you can use a different method of teaching, visual, physical correction, whatever the case may be. The interesting thing is going to be how people figure out how to teach their old style or their traditional way of teaching with some of the requirements. And you're 100% right. Some people are going to make an adjustment, crew or not, and do that well. And some people are stuck in their ways and they're going to have a very tough time. And I hope not. I hope that our community, let me rephrase that. I believe my community is understanding enough to look at this challenge and be willing to call another gym owner and say, I figured this out. You may want to try this. I'm going to give a shout out here. Crew Daryl from Darkside was on that call. I don't know if he's going to be upset or happy with me mentioning this, but one of the things that he did was he said, I went out to my municipal bylaw person and I mapped out everything that I thought I should be doing. And he told me to tweak a couple of things and he gave me my approval, and he shared that willingly. There were other gym owners on that call, a crew Jeff, who told me, I am going to lead a class like this. Do you guys think that it is going to work? And everyone kind of thought about it. And I said, that's actually a great idea. I didn't even think of that. I am hoping that this brings out the very best of people and not the silly competitive stuff. I'm hoping that we consolidate all our information and say, I would rather that my student get punched by your student 5 months from now and lose a fight than to have your gym go under and my student have no one to punch in the face or get punched by. That's just facts. And I'm hoping that everyone is of the same mindset to say, I'd rather earn a win or a loss in a competitive way, the real way, than that awesome gym isn't around because that owner didn't adapt and we weren't willing to share. I'm hoping that everyone's willing to share.
Yeah, that's what also scares me as well is just given the entire situation. I know a lot in the jiu-jitsu community, there's a lot of forums, a lot of people are sharing ideas. Okay, like how are we going to conduct business? How are we going to run classes? And I share the same fear with you as well, because there's a lot of people that are they're gym owners, and understandably so, because, you know, their livelihood is on the line and they're sitting there going like, okay, like I'm just watching, like even what you said in that video, just take your money and just
yeah, put it in a hole,
throw it away. And they're like, you know what, I need to start taking, you know, matters into my own hands. I'm going to open up at all costs. And, you know, I get it from a financial standpoint, but in the big picture, you could be doing a lot more harm than good.
100% correct. One of the reasons why the government has dropped some of these restrictions or some of these guidelines or asked the PSO to define what's required is because we have process, because we can make sure that everyone is following the same plan and that plan is vetted. It's approved by a health officer. It's approved by each different municipality. It's being reviewed by multiple people. It's being reviewed by a lawyer, by an insurance agent to make sure that this is the least risk with the most benefit that we can give you with the cards that we're dealt right now. And as long as it's approached with that mindset, you can do no harm. That doesn't mean that the PSO wants everyone to register for registration's sake. It just means that I would hate to harm this industry. I don't want to be that skating rink that was fined, rumors are it was $10,000 because they had one coach and 4 students on one side of the rink and one coach and 4 students on the other side of the rink. And the requirement at that point in time was you can only have 5 people. Well, you and I would look at that and we would say, it's a skating rink. It's huge. We're not even remotely close to each other. But at that point in time, the limitation was 5 people, period. Right? So even in that, trying to adapt, trying to sift between the cracks, go through the gray area, which honestly I'm notorious for doing, in going through the gray area, now you have additional costs, a fine. And who's got extra money right now to pay for a fine, right? So I'd rather give gym owners with the team, Jenny Liu, Crew Jen, Michael Reed, I'd rather give them the tools that say this stuff will keep you out of trouble and will keep your gym as safe and successful as possible. I'd rather give them those tools and say, print this out, put your name at the top, you're good, than to say, figure it out, than to say, I don't want to restrict you too much. Let's just hope that you don't have a situation in your gym. That's the worst scenario possible. And the most important part is, just as a good human being, having contact tracing, being able to say, this person was infected. Hey, Mike, you were at my gym on Tuesday at 7:00. This person has contracted the disease. Don't spread it to your grandma this weekend because it's her birthday. That's just being a good, decent human being, but it requires a business practice behind it to ensure the safety of those that you may not necessarily know you're going to harm.
Awesome. I want to take the time to thank you for coming on, Mr. Crew Brian Edwards. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Brained Words, AKA. Thank you for taking the time out to talk with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm hoping that it was of value to not just you guys, but to your subscribers. I really consider it an honor.
You really, our 10 subscribers are thoroughly enjoying.
Only 10 now.
Very true. Very true.
A year from now, they might look back at it and go, why they have that guy Crew B on there, man? What an idiot. Who knows?
No, this was awesome. And like, I really liked your perspective as well. This is why I wanted to have you on, because you have the gym owner perspective. We also have like the PSO perspective of what's going on. And I think what we even learned as well, it's like nobody has like the 100% answer. Okay, we're going to do this going forward. And it's a gray area. I don't think anybody's ever experienced this before. And a lot of people just don't know what to do, and they're scared. They don't know what to do. They want to open up their gym, but they don't know how, or they're getting antsy and they want to get back to business. But
100%. And that you're literally doing a service to people by saying, hold up, wait. I don't even care if non-PSO people got our documentation, applied it, and opened up. You're not supposed to, but at least you're going to do so in the manner that's safest for your members. You know what I mean? Again, just being a good human. Just don't be a jerk. Don't spit in the wind. Don't tug on Superman's cape.
Don't be a jerk. I think we'll end with that.
Yeah, we're going to end it with that.
There you go.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to seeing the future, especially in the sport in general, your success as a club, your success in general. Like I said, all the best to you, and I hope to come to the club soon when it's open.
Doors are open anytime other than now. COVID high five, man.
Drop by anytime, just not right now.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Or don't get caught.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Take care.